The afternoon sun blazed down on the dusty square of a forgotten border town, where morality had long withered under the weight of poverty, lawlessness, and greed. A wooden stage had been crudely constructed near the town center. Crowds gathered, not for a speech or a performance, but for something darker. They were there to witness a human auction. Among the trembling souls forced onto the platform stood a young woman draped in tattered white robes. Her delicate face, though marred with bruises and dust, held a serenity that shamed even the cruelest men among the crowd. Her name was Sister Elena, a nun who had once devoted her life to the poor and sick in the mountains of northern Mexico. She had disappeared weeks ago, snatched by traffickers who had no regard for vows, for God, or for innocence. She stood barefoot on the platform, hands bound in front of her, lips pressed tightly in prayer. Her face glowed with a peaceful defiance that pierced the twisted hearts of some onlookers. But the auctioneer, José Vargas, a corrupt ex-lawman turned profiteer, just smirked. "Pure as snow, untouched," he said, raising her chin with the end of his rifle. "Who'll start the bidding?" Silence hung in the air until a gruff voice shouted, 200. The crowd began to murmur, some shouting counteroffers like it was cattle, not a human life. Sister Elena closed her eyes and prayed, not for herself, but for those in the crowd, and for the souls of the men who had dragged her here. Miles away, in a crumbling ranch at the edge of the desert, Levi Callahan poured a shot of whiskey into a chipped glass. The sun had aged him faster than time. A once promising rodeo star and ranch heir, Levi had fallen hard after losing his wife and daughter in a highway crash. He'd let the ranch go to ruin, let the land dry up, and let his heart close off to the world. But that day, something shifted. He heard the distant hooves of his only horse, Dusty, pacing restlessly in the stable. And then came young Tommy, the half-orphaned boy from the nearby village who often ran errands for Levi. "Mr. Levi." Levi didn't even look up. "Not today, kid. They're auctioning a woman in town. A nun. She's just standing there, like she ain't scared. But they're gonna sell her to the highest bidder." That snapped Levi's attention. "What did you say?" Tommy's eyes burned with desperation. "You always told me your wife believed in saving what could still be saved." "Please, Mr. Levi. They'll hurt her." Levi sat there for a moment, frozen, then stood up abruptly. Dust gathered on his boots as he pushed them on. He hadn't ridden in months, hadn't cared in longer. But something about the boy's words, about a nun with courage in her eyes, stirred something in his broken heart. He saddled Dusty, grabbed a wad of cash hidden behind his wife's old photograph, and rode into the setting sun. By the time Levi arrived, the bidding was frenzied. Men in dusty suits shouted numbers, their voices louder, crueler. 500. 750. The nun remained still, her eyes toward heaven. Levi dismounted, silence falling over the crowd as they noticed the weathered rancher step forward, his boots echoing on the wooden floor of the stage. 1,000, Levi said quietly. Gasps. 1,500, yelled a drunk man in the back. Levi didn't blink. 2,000. Vargas chuckled. You sure, cowboy? She's not for Savon. Levi stepped up closer. She is today. No one dared raise the bid. The crowd grew quiet. And with a reluctant nod, Vargas grunted, sold. Levi stepped up and untied the ropes from her hands himself. For the first time, she looked directly at him. Thank you, she whispered. No, Levi replied, voice gravelly with emotion. Thank you for reminding me I still have a soul. He helped her onto Dusty, and they rode into the dying light, away from the jeers and chains, toward freedom. The next weeks were slow and healing. Levi took Sister Elena in not as a possession, but as a guest. She stayed in the small guest house once meant for ranch hands. She cooked simple meals and hummed hymns while washing dishes. She didn't speak much about what happened to her, nor did she ask Levi about his past. They respected each other's silences. But every evening, they sat on the porch and watched the sunset. One night, Levi finally opened up. "I used to believe in God. Until the crash. My wife and daughter, gone in a second. I stopped praying. Stopped living." Sister Elena placed a hand over his. "God never stopped listening. Sometimes, He waits for us to cry out, even from the pit. You didn't just save me, Levi. You saved yourself." He looked at her, truly looked, and for the first time in years, felt tears rise. News of the auction spread. The government was forced to investigate. With Sister Elena's help, Levi testified. Vargas and his men were arrested. The nun refused to return to the convent, choosing instead to build a small chapel and shelter on Levi's ranch for abused women and runaway girls. The ranch flourished again, not from cattle or crops, but from healing and hope. People came from all over. Women with haunted eyes, children who had forgotten laughter, men trying to find redemption. Levi and Elena, two broken souls, became anchors for others. Sister Elena also started teaching. She gave classes on reading, sewing, and even basic farming. She helped the women and children plant vegetables, harvest rainwater, and care for the animals. Slowly, the ranch turned into a sanctuary. One day, a young woman arrived at the ranch in the middle of the night, barefoot and crying. Her name was Maria, only 16, pregnant, and fleeing a violent gang. Sister Elena hugged her, gave her food, a place to sleep, and introduced her to Levi the next morning. Together, they gave Maria not just safety, but dignity. Months later, Maria gave birth to a healthy baby girl and named her Elena. Another day, Levi found a battered man on the road leading to the ranch. The man had once been a trafficker himself, but now sought redemption. Elena didn't turn him away. She made him work the fields, fix the fences, and listen to the stories of the women he once hurt. Over time, he wept, healed, and even became one of the fiercest protectors of the ranch. Elena's influence grew beyond the borders of the ranch. She was invited to speak at churches, women's shelters, even courts. But she always came home to Levi's porch and their quiet sunsets. She never wore makeup, never wore anything but simple clothes and a wooden cross around her neck. But to Levi, she was the most radiant woman he'd ever known. And though Elena remained a nun, and Levi never remarried, they became a different kind of family. One quiet evening, Tommy, now growing tall and brave, asked, "Do you ever regret it, Mr. Levi? Spending all your savings on someone you didn't even know?" Levi smiled, looking out over the fields filled with children's laughter. "Kid, that was the best damn money I ever spent." In a world filled with cruelty, indifference, and injustice, sometimes all it takes is one act of courage to turn the tide. One broken man saved one broken woman, and together, they saved many more. This isn't just a story about a nun or a rancher. It's about hope finding us in the darkest places, about faith restored through kindness, and about the miracle that can happen when we choose to see the humanity in someone else. Because when you save someone, sometimes, you save yourself.